Okay, good morning, everyone. Wednesday morning, and we're going through the Tai Chi Broadsword for about a half an hour, and a lot of people have been following this, and a lot of people from the academy have already learned this. So, in a half an hour, it's pretty challenging to do too many sequential type things where you can learn. So you can follow along and learn some of the basics, and then revisit some of the other videos that we have that actually has helped build this sequence. So anyone that's just tuning in for the first time, it's going to be a bit challenging for you to try to pick up on every little bit of sequence. And the broadsword is like any other form, does take practice and memory. The difference is that it's an extension of the body. So the extension of the body requires that the body has built somewhat of an understanding. So it's a good idea to learn the empty hand first, the Tai Chi paradigm or the Tai Chi 108 form, to give you a foundation to learn the weapon, because you need footwork and you need some other things that will make it a little bit easier. So anyways, just starting off, here's a position. And here's the horizontal, the vertical, switch over, and the poke, back to neutral. So these are some of the transitions that we have in the form, but we want to be able to define the direction of the blade and the direction of the different strokes. So when we stroke across, it's slicing. When we thrust to the front, it's a poke, whether it's low, whether it's like this, shoulder level, or slicing is the direction. So when we're poking, you want the backhand to have this hook position like this, or sometimes this hand is here. Like when you're doing parry and punch, when you punch, you sometimes have this hand here. So that gives you an idea how that kind of correlates and gives you a reference point of where the hand should be. When we slice down like this, we have the foot position as an empty stance, and this position is like this. Now this hand, I mentioned before, is a willow palm, unlike the straight sword form where you have this position called a sword finger. So we're here, okay. If we're like this in this single-legged stance, you want this hand to be in that back 45 corner so you can see it looks like this in the mirror. Maybe I'll step over here. And this hand there's 90 degrees, there's 135 degrees, and your hand is like this, and your knee position is like this. When you kick, you pull in, and then reset to here. So the hand you sink the elbow, and you end up here. Okay, so that's one of the transitions when we're standing in the single-legged position, and we go like this. Okay. Another transition that sometimes is a little bit challenging is this one, when we turn and we twist, and we end up like this. Okay, so when we turn and we twist, and bring the sword up like this. Okay. Now when we open and we step out, the sword pokes like this, rather than, so this is poking more to the side or parallel to your chest. Okay. Then you also have a poke that thrusts downward like this. So when we're in this position, and we want to target there, we set it up and drop. Okay? So you see there's, different dimensions and different directions of movement. So you have the poke to the front, you have the poke down, you have the poke across. These are all transitions, but it's also tied together with some type of body form. So what's the body form, the body imagery? You have a cross-legged position there. You have a cross-legged position here. And anytime you cross your legs, you're going to do some kind of a unwinding of those legs. Because when your legs are crossed, the only thing you do is unwind. So that's what the maneuver is actually. A cross-legged stance is to change directions and then head in another direction. So that's what that footwork is. In fact, anytime you cross your legs, you have to unwind it. You cross your legs, you unwind it. So this is crossing in front. This is crossing behind. And that's how we do that slicing maneuver where you kind of make that rotation. So that's when we're here. When we cross, okay, and we cross behind, you can see that all we're doing is crossing, and I'm getting out of the camera view. So when we cross, we're 1, 2, 3. You see, so you have to practice that pivoting to control your center so that when you're in a position where you're going to go like this, 1, 2, and then you either make a change in your position. So that happens when we're here. 1, spin over the head and spin, and then if you're changing directions, you would end up over here. So in the form, that happens several times. It happens in a series like this. 1, 2, here's the first slice down, here's your block, here's your slice, over the top. That was the first time. This is the second time. And then when we step back to change directions, here's the third time. So if you get it once, you'll have it, 3 times because it's essentially the same movement. So those, I think, are some of the trickier moves. The one that cuts under the leg is really more of a balance. So you cut under the leg, then you flip the sword up, then you drop it, take it out, drop it over, and then we go to ending movements, where this movement is similar to the movement that when we hop and we turn, it's similar to this series of movements. Except for here, instead of stepping up and closing, we go over and we end up here. Right? So those are I'm just drawing some movements that happen throughout the form that are similar. So once you've learned some of the transitions or the maneuvering of the sword, then you'll be familiar with it. And the thing is, those are common movements that you can kind of practice just that as a piece in isolation and then bring it back into the form. All right, so we're going to go through the sequence now, starting off with shoulder width stance and preparation. We step up, left side. Remember I mentioned in the other classes that once you start the form, don't over grip the sword. Allow your arm to be as relaxed as possible so you can mold and accommodate the weapon, because if you're holding too tight, what ends up happening is it restricts your movement. So holding it too tight is just like being stiff and having a conflict in movement. Okay? And we push the sword, we go behind, and we come back to undercut, and here's that maneuver. And you stab, turn, and poke. So this one is upside down. The blade is facing up. Then we step up to the back corner, we kick up, and we switch the feet, and we're down like this. 1, 2, 3. Here's a low poke. Bring it to your elbow or the tricep area there, the upper arm. Lift up, step through center, and drop the sword right in there. Okay, so that's chopping in this position. Then we're here. 1, 2, 3. Then we poke. Slice 1, waist cut over the head. Sit back to get your weight on that supporting leg. We're here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. This is pretty common, this series of movements, if you can kind of track it. Here. Then we sit back. Here's that half step. Actually, we did one like that in the 24 movement form. And then we lift. See, whenever you lift and go over the head, you see it's resting on my upper arm. And I lift, and I turn to bring this sword to this direction. So those are all waist cuts. And this is the leaning position. To turn, chop down, it goes to the left side of the body, and I'm here. Then I turn, and my hand ends up here. So I'm supporting this, so you can see where the forearm is supporting the blade. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Over the head, spin, take the sword over the head, step backwards a little bit till you're here. Okay? Bring this hand behind you, go over the top, step up, and there's your empty stance to the leaning position. And that's almost like fan to the back, but you're as a position in the Yang style. So here we twist, and we go over, and now we're in this direction. Oops, sorry, and we're here. We're back to here. And then we're going to step backwards. 1, to the waist, and turn. Over the head, turn, and then we're here. Then we poke horizontally like this. Then we look to this back corner, set up the body, and you're just going to drop into it like this. Come back up, chop down, and poke. Now we're here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and we're here. Step up, chop down, put your hand like this, divert. Okay, then we step up, chop again, and poke down. Lift the sword up, go like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Step up. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And we step up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Poke. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and we're here. Step up. 1, 2. Okay. Let's try that again. Step up. We're here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Chop down. Poke. We're here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we would close. And actually, I left out a section of the form that was repeated when we did this in the beginning. So we ended up facing the opposite direction in the closing. So sequentially, the piece that after we did the poke in this direction should be here, right? And we step up. We turn 1, 2. This piece and this piece really is the part that connects us to the other side. Okay, so this is the part that has the 1, 2, 3, and we would end up crossing and going in this direction. So you get to see the sort of the back side of the form on the front side, so it gives you that mirror image. So, a lot of times when we go through the sequence, you see it in the mirror, but you don't see it in the front side. So tracking it is pretty important. So let's try that again. Ready? So we start off, okay, opening the form, 1, 2, 3. So this is the first section, just like the opening in the Tai Chi form. This is grasp the sparrow's tail, essentially. And then we brush and push. Sit back. Switch the hands. The hand goes from here to there. And then you push. We slice to the left. We slice to the right. We're back in center, and we poke. Then we're here. Pushing the sword forward, we shift, step up, take it over the top, drop it down, take it up, and uppercut. Now when we do this, you can also transition the feet like this. And then we're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're in that corner. Then we're going to the rear corner. 1, 2, 3. We slice this way. And this is where I mentioned that it goes on the upper arm, lift up from here, chop down, bring the right foot up, and switch feet, and then poke down. Now we're going to sit back, and we're going to slice around, and then we sit back, poke, heel kick, and push. Now here's where we have the two sections that are almost identical. We slice around, we poke forward, over the top, undercut, and here we have the like a single whip horse stance. We sit and then we push again. Now this is where it repeats. So if you eliminated this section, you would end up, so this piece and this piece would be the same. Now instead of pushing forward, you would make a big circle. And you set down, this, and back to center. You push forward, so that would be the piece that we're talking about. Now here, here's that half step. That's like in the Yang style. Or that's actually a shuffle step in many of the Tai Chi movements or forms. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. And here's where the twisting and spinning comes in. And we go over the top, and come to center. Then we're going to repeat 1, 2, 3, and we end up here. We withdraw, step back like retreating, and then we're here. 1, 2, this goes over, 3, 4, and 5. Here we step up and poke over there. We find that corner, and we're here. Okay, then we would do the diagonal flying, and we use this type of a step. I'm going to do a couple of more of those, and we're here. Then we would hit, and here's the chicken nods its head. So those are some of the samples of what happens in the form, and hopefully the brief explanations I made on the different techniques would be something that you can house and practice. So that's something that you can do going forward. Just review the video and kind of see what we did in the very beginning to improve your movements. So on that note, I think it's about time. Practice more. I have 10 minutes? Oh, okay. So I lost track of time. I heard the pencil, and I thought it was over. So anyways, this is your diagonal flying. Let's do the footwork for that. So when we're here, and we drop, and shift, and lift, and drop, that actually is how we get into diagonal flying. It happens several times. This one, we end up here. Now the chicken nods its head. This is really upper-lower coordination where the hands and the legs are moving, so the body kind of does this. This kind of reminds me of the pigeons in the Boston Commons, and they're walking around, their heads going, mm-mm-mm. So that actually is what a chicken nodding its head is. So it's just drawing comparisons to how, either animals or birds move. So a lot of martial arts are kind of replicating movements that they see out in nature, whether it's the tiger, the crane, the snake, the stork, the chicken. So all of these, positions that they see back in the day of animals, and they kind of say, well, okay, that's the golden chicken standing on one leg. Okay, that's a chicken nodding its head. And then this is diagonal flying again. So diagonal flying is really a slanting diagonal. Slanting is anything that's on this oblique. Okay, so we have that series, and then it goes like that. Then there's another one that when we hop or we change directions, it's like this. And we drop the elbow so that the sword is against the arm. So you have this direction and this direction. Okay. So when we're here, okay, and we sit back like this, we go like this, and we can do that. So this position, okay, to neutral is one way of doing it. There's actually another way of doing it, but that's just getting into the same position. So when we're here, okay, when we go 1, 2, 3, that's taking the sword this way and then poking like that. So that's 1, 2, or 1, 2, or 1, 2. So there's different versions based on different teachers. So I mentioned, like the Yang style and and maybe some different things. Actually, the Wu style is derived from the Yang style. So there will be some some common positions that appear to be in both forms. So that's why there is some similarity in some of the body form and positions. So, something like a diagonal flying like this, okay, is a common movement in many of the forms. So get familiar with this diagonal flying position. And I mentioned before that when you do the diagonal flying, typically your hand is here and the hand goes up. But in the sword form, when your hand is here, you go to the inside, so you're on top of the sword, because it's dangerous going from here and then like this, because then you would slice yourself and cut yourself. So here, you want to be in the upper position to avoid, any conflict in that movement. And in this chop position, I mentioned that this is one version, this is another version. And then so when you chop, this should be horizontal, this should be 45-degree angular, and you're pointing over the knee. So the alignment of your position really is referenced through your body. So when you poke, you want the sword to be in line with the nose, the tip of the sword, and your knee, your front knee. In this instance, it's in front of this knee. So there is a lot of similarities in the different martial arts that I teach. Kung Fu has that alignment. Yet-Himon has that alignment. The alignments are common and consistent because we have the same body. It doesn't really matter what style we're working on. Slicing and dicing, right? So when you slice, it chops like this. When you slice like this, it's downward. So slicing means to draw the sword. When you push like this and you come over the top, there's the slice there. You can push, but then as it goes up, you can see that there's going to be an action there. And then when you bring it down here, here's the big slice that comes up right with the leg. And here's the push. So practicing this movement will actually benefit that transition. You'll actually develop a better stepping and building better timing with that step. Shifting of the weight and transitioning through, so your upper-lower coordination really makes a difference. So when we go forward, you want to go into your empty stance and then transition through your leaning stance to your empty stance, and then you transition into your leaning, and it depends if you're coming up and then making a transition like this. So when we slow everything down, you can see how the body and the direction of your movement starts to synchronize, because your hands and legs actually have to move together. Just like when we're slicing, here's leading the hand and the sword. This is the sword leading the hand. This is combining. This is setting up. This is dropping down. This is spinning around. This is going here. Now when we step back, we have to set up like this. Then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 5. 1, 2, and then this has to go over the top in order to align the body in that direction. And then when we turn and we lift, step out, and switch to the left hand. Take it down, flip the sword, bring it to here. Sit back, lift it over, suspended position, empty stance. So you can step forward, take it over the top, bring it down, bring it in, step up, brush knee, and chop. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, fold, push, 1, 2, bring it up, bring it over, and down. So those are the closing movements. So if you methodically go through your movements, moving one segment of your body at a time, over time your body will start to pick up. So doing this is no different from any of the other strategies that we have in learning Tai Chi. Is the building of body mechanics, muscle memory, motor skill, coordination, tracking and movement. Everything is directional. Everything is integrated through hand-eye coordination. So on that note, I think we have just about run out of time. So follow us again, as I say, YouTube, subscribe, thumbs up, and I'll see you next week, and we'll continue to see where we're going, once we begin to open the doors. Okay, I'll see you next time.